Hello and welcome to a new English episode of the SEOPRESSO Podcast. I'm your host, Björn Darko, and today we have a special guest, Pedro Dias. We'll be exploring the role of Product-Led SEO and how its importance is evolving in the age of AI. For those who don't know him, Pedro's journey began in web design in beautiful Lisbon and took him to Google search quality team in Dublin, which is not as beautiful as Lisbon, but you can tell me more later, where he helped shape the way search works. He later founded successful SEO consultancies, led SEO strategies for big major publishing houses and automotive brands, and served as a technical SEO specialist at eBay. Today, he focuses on technical SEO, product SEO, and AI-driven findability, helping brands ensure their products can be discovered in an increasingly intelligent search landscape. I'm excited to dive into his insights and experiences. And with this, welcome to the SEOPRESSO Podcast, Pedro.
Thank you very much, Björn. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and finally, like we had some difficulties finding a slot, but now finally it's here. And you are among a lot of also famous and knowledgeable and really interesting SEOs, also from the US, also from Spain, from Germany, of course. And so I'm happy that you are also now here because you're not unknown. People that also kind of research the English speaking market definitely have seen your name and read your name also on LinkedIn. But what I really like to ask you first is you seem to be a long time in the SEO industry already. How does it feel to be an SEO right now?
It feels a bit crazy, to be honest. It feels a bit, everybody's fighting for some space in kind of visibility in what is redefining the industry. And I think there are good arguments on the SEO side where I think 90% or 80% is still very much the foundational parts of SEO. There are some things that you should probably pay attention that, are a bit or you should pay more attention than you used to because these systems are a bit different than a search engine. But all in all, it feels like that we are trying to rediscover where we belong. And there are loud voices that are prominent, prominent voices it's something completely different. And there are others that are more, down to earth, I'd say. But it's fun times, I'd say, probably.
I also have to ask you because you're one of the few people that also worked on the Google's team. Coming from the outside perspective, looking at Google, everything that's going on now. Your experience, is that something where you look at Google and say, it's not as big as everybody thinks, or is it like, oh yeah, Google is really, really important also now in the AI times and really moving forward way faster than ChatGPT, for example. Can you share some insights, or are you not allowed?
No, I am. As I was in the search quality team, I was mostly doing proactive spam hunting and debugging even problems in search. Overall, I think, and I used to say, Google has been in the AI game since the AI buzzwords came along. Google has been doing AI evaluation of spam and quality for a very long time, and machine learning on top of the quality of its search results. Just we didn't have the generative answering part of things like we have now. But all in all, I think pretty much all the aspects of quality and information retrieval and everything that's at the need for a search engine or some system to give you an answer or to come back with a result to you that is relevant and meets the quality that you expect. There has to be some kind of AI criteria or machine learning criteria on top of it. So I would say that whatever we were doing, and a lot of things that we were doing in the SEO regarding what we learned on EAT and EAT and all the. I like to go a bit more outside of this words because EAT, for me, it's something that derived from the Peter Morville honeycomb, the UX, user experience honeycomb, where you have like value at the center and everything else around, like findability and, information architecture and everything, usability, web accessibility. So everything goes around the value, and the value is in the center. And to have value, you have to lit up all the other hexagons around it. And to me, that's much more accurate, an accurate representation of expertise and authoritativeness and trustworthiness, rather than just the abbreviation that Google taught us that these things were. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good and important work that from someone that worked in search is very valuable for the days that we are living in AI. There are like things that Google looked at, like, you could say like Google evaluated a lot of demand or needs for a query based on how people interact with results, and it doesn't. Google has a lot of data to make these judgments. So I think it would be, if I was in charge of Google, would be a no-brainer to bring this data in to make some AI judgments and how you spit out the data or how you generate the answers, so to speak. So yeah, I think there's a lot of synergies that are not wasted there. Things might have changed, technology might have evolved. We are not dealing with anymore like tiered indexes like we had before in the old days. But now things are probably like in a different state. But yeah, overall, there's a lot to be, resurfaced or.
Yeah, I also love like the way how I look at these things are like two ways, right? One way is when people say, okay, search is completely changing, meaning that the search behavior goes to ChatGPT. And yes, that might be true for some instances, especially when it comes to information-based queries, for example, right? I see that at my own behavior. However, I know that ChatGPT, also Perplexity, but ChatGPT more so is pretty much dependent on Google, as you see already. The grounding technique or like the subquery fan out that is happening. So they rely on search, right? If I would just imagine they would need to build their own index, for example, right? Then we would actually get into the same situation that Google has built already, like for decades, right? This quality aspect of it, like fighting spam, looking at thin content, looking at useful content, fighting links, like all those algorithmic updates that Google has in place to make sure that search is more or less qualitative, right? This also should or needs then to happen also on OpenAI or Perplexity. I mean, as long as they also rely on Google, then they have that kind of indirectly already, right? But once they start building their own index, and so on and so forth, they would also need to build all those updates and all those security measures into the systems as well.
Definitely. I was watching a podcast or a conversation that, I don't know if Dan Petrovich is Day on SEO. He was having a chat with Tom Critchlow, I believe, and he published that on YouTube. And one thing that he spoke about is he has been doing a lot of training himself and exploring the AI himself, like doing a lot of testing. And one thing that he spoke about is that how Google grounds 100% of the answers that they give. And to do this, you need to have a robust index, a robust like corpus of data that is being validated, it has some inherent quality to it, right? You cannot just ground stuff on some other index. And I think that's why kind of ChatGPT, we kind of saw them trying to scrape Google right? Instead of, because they have a partnership with Bing, so they could easily use Bing for that. But I think they tried like to start to use a more reliable source and like to be able to do that, to ground your answers, because another study that I read like just this week was how these systems, the hallucinations are by design and they are not a bug. So the system will learn from a corpus of data. And when you ask it about something that is new and it's not in the training data, it will need to ground the answer and validate what it knows against what its novelty. And because these systems are biased against novelty, they are like designed to answer with confidence what they've learned about. When the grounding is not done properly or in a corpus of data that is not big enough or qualitative enough, they tend like to hallucinate and diverge and give you answers that are like seem very confident, but they are like wrong, so to speak. So I would say that in this aspect, Google is very well placed at the forefront of everyone else, because I don't know about you, but I've seen people that left Google trying to build search engines, and everyone kind of failed at building the search engine. It's not an easy feat, and I mean since Google has been the dominant player, Yahoo tried to catch them when they were still relevant. Microsoft threw all the resources that they could at building Bing, and still they can't get like to be the main player in the ecosystem. So here we are, like having a search engine and a corpus of data that is representative of the knowledge of the web in a way that is factual, correct, and a bit of like not 100% free from manipulation, but mostly free from it. It's not a small feat. And in this aspect, this new AI companies are starting from scratch. So, I mean, taking away Microsoft has already some groundwork done, but still they are reliant on the partnership that they have with ChatGPT to have the other side of it. So, I think like on that aspect, Google is very well positioned for all of this. And, if grounding is what's going to make AI answers and generative answers be more correct than wrong and be more useful than not, then I think the cards are laid on the table already, mostly.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. And that's why we also want to talk about product-led SEO, because, once you've built a great product, and that includes everything that we, look at when we want to do SEO optimization, I think that is actually, as you said, the groundwork for that grounding. So making sure that we are well positioned also at Google and a trusted source. You've led SEO initiatives at companies ranging from Google to eBay, large media publishers, marketplaces for automotive, etc. How did each of those environments actually shape your thinking about product-led SEO, and what common patterns do you see across such different verticals as well?
So my love with product began actually at Google. At Google, I was not only part of the spam fighting team, I was part of the tools development team. So I was part of the team that built internal tools for the purposes of spam fighting. And I've learned to deal with people that are on the development side of things, on the front end side of things, and on all these departments that kind of need to collaborate to bring these things to fruition. And when I left Google, and when I opened my own business, I went to Brazil, because Brazil is the largest Portuguese-speaking market. I'm from Portugal, but Portugal is tiny, right? So I went to Brazil in a natural move, and I mostly was operating. I opened like a digital marketing agency with other people that also had left Google at the time. I started operating more towards the marketing side of things, but it never kind of resonated that well with me than the product. And that is because I believe that although there is some overlap of SEO with marketing, and SEO can indeed meet some of the needs of marketing, I think the full extent of the overlap in terms of planning and what you want to accomplish are as a much better fit in a product environment than in a marketing environment. And marketing tends to be more chasing hot topics and more towards terms that you want to rank for, content that you want to put out, and mostly like promotional kind of aspect of it all. Whereas the product side of things tends to be more like, okay, how do I bake SEO into the DNA of this product? So when we think of a new feature, it already sits on the information architecture tree that I laid out for the website. It already taps into the value proposition that the business has, and it can, derive from it. How does the team kind of think about building the website in a way that it's already like not a roadblock for search engines and all these aspects. So there's so many things that you can go so much more in depth rather than in breadth, right? Whereas in marketing you go more in a branches and in breadth that you want to give advice, and the industries that you want to operate in, because you have clients from diverse niches, and because you have to be kind of able to understand how a problem from one client helps this other client in another different niche. So there's a horizontal aspect to it that is also, it has its value, but I think where the product approach of SEO has the most effectiveness is when you go in depth and you make all the other teams that work in towards the product itself be more efficient. So and I started to have a glimpse at this because after I left Google, as I said, the business was mostly marketing driven. But after a while, we started to have like a partnership with McKinsey in Brazil, where McKinsey would take us to consult for their clients as well. And with this process, I ended up like going a lot to be part of internal teams. As an external consultant, I was going to sit together with, platform departments and technical departments from other businesses. So I started to have like a sense again of the needs of SEO at a deeper level and within product. So I started to think, okay, this is more something that I want to do rather than, go on the sensationalistic takes around SEO. I want to go and speak again with engineers and people that have the data rather than people that have opinions. Like this is how I very much see the distinction. Like on product, you end up arguing with a lot of data, and your ego stays a bit more aside because you have to bring your assumptions either with user research studies or with some kind of data studies to prove that what you want to do, rather than on the marketing side things when you have like a hunch to do something. So for me, this other part where I argue with data is much more fulfilling, and the ability to go in depth is also much more fulfilling. And by going into basically the chance to do this is when you have the chance to go in-house, mostly like than a solo consultant or a business. You can do it as a business consultant, but it's usually harder because it requires sometimes your 100% commitment to, or your time commitment to this project, and you cannot attend many projects in parallel. So after a while, I left the business in Brazil. I sold my business back to my business partners, and I came back to Europe. I came to the UK, and I came as head of SEO for one of the biggest news publishers. So I started my journey in product. I restarted in a news product. So yeah, and from there it has been all the way product, and I've tried always to align myself with product. But this is the mindset that I have.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like also working on the product side when it comes to SEO, like marketing, I don't mean it disrespectful, but marketing is a lot of fluff, right? And it's very short term, right? Whereas in product, you're really building something sustainable. Like if you really build like a new, I don't know, internal linking architecture, that's something that is very, very sustainable, and you can also drive sustainable growth at the end of the day, right? Whereas in marketing, you sit there, okay, there's a short-term campaign that you need. Okay, let's change the internal links for, let's say, Black Friday or Christmas, right? That's very short-term. And, whereas in product, you can build an automatic way how that's changing all the time based on the needs, based on seasonality, based on, data like clicks or, how many impressions or how many conversions, how much was the revenue, etc. Like there's plenty of ideas that you can fulfill by yourself with your product teams, with your development teams. Whereas, in marketing, you sit, you create a ticket, you wait, and you need to push a lot because, there are other priorities as well.
And you have just one small compliment, and you have a lot of more chances to do some testing within a product environment than at a marketing environment. And also, when you do not have the data or the ability to test, you can always work on building the infrastructure needed to create those tests and create those environments and measure more accurately what you want. Whereas in marketing, because everything is much more superficial and goes after the temporary needs of the business in that moment for that period of time, you might not have the buy-in from to do all the testing that you need to do and build the systems that you need to do to collect the data that you need for testing and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. And product-led SEO also puts user, like as product does, right, puts user needs and product functionality at the heart of each or of search optimization per se, right? If in an area or in an era of AI-driven search results and answer engines, as we see the evolvement today, how do you see that philosophy evolving? Like, does it become more important, or does AI change the rules entirely when it comes to user needs and product functionalities?
I think it changes a bit the game because AI is mostly a black box. It doesn't. We do not have any, I would say, even directional data, because we keep people. There are a lot of people going after these new tools that do prompt tracking and do or admit to have some kind of insights into the data that what people are prompting. But I think so far I've seen more discrepancies and lack of answers than answers, right? And whenever we ask questions around, it all falls back to it's directional data, it's something. And I'm pretty much worried with this approach because it's directional data on top of what? If it's on top of guessing data, then it's guessing, you're just throwing stuff in the air and hoping it falls on the table, and that it validates your assumptions, right? It's not some data that you can actually validate. You're just doing confirmation bias. And so I think more than not, now it's important that we either partner with user research teams where you are part of interviews of users and you are part of understanding the pain points of users that use your product and how do they reach to your product, and every stage that the user goes through before they convert into your product. You need to understand what's the top of the funnel, what does it mean, the top of the funnel, the mid funnel, what the personas are, whatever. I don't know, like even if you can have like persona models now with this AI, we might have to rethink this. I don't know. Because before with search, you had all this keyword tracking and you had somehow things were a bit more directional, so to speak, because a query is a query and there is only a set of 10 results that can more or less vary a little bit for a given query, but they wouldn't diverge that much in the end of the day. You know, after you query a search engine like 5 or 6 times for the same query, you could have small variations on what's more up and what's more down, but you could see more or less the intent that was, you know, the bread and butter of what you'd be after. And you could almost get away a little bit without asking users or going part of user research. Yes, you could do a much more meaningful job, or if you use the data from user research. But you didn't really have to. You could survive by just using tools, using Google Search Console, and looking at the data more or less, and you could infer what does this query. What is the intent of this query when users are getting to my website, and then follow through what are the conversion steps and do some analysis on that. But now, because all this data that is at the top of the funnel is mostly like, some of it is even disappearing. I don't know if we have to be comfortable with that. We might have to be, I don't know. And we might have to focus on the deeper stages of the funnel from an optimization standpoint. But I think more than ever, you need to be multi-departmental. You need to go to user research. You need to go to the user support teams, like that deal with complaints, and try to understand what are users asking around in your business, because I don't think these prompt tracking tools give you all you need to do or need to know, even if directionally.
There are so many important and very interesting things that you said that I want to dive in. First of all, you said you mentioned personas. And the way how you said it, it really popped also into my mind, right? Because yes, I do think it is important to rethink personas for SEOs, especially in AI search. And I might be wrong, but this is how I think about it. When you search for you might search for the same prompt than I do, right? But you get a very different result, synthetic output from the AI search than I do, because based on your prompt history, based on what the AI knows about you, you might be more interested in different kind of bikes, different kind of Bluetooth, earphones, different kind of mobile phones. You're more an iPhone guy, I'm more a Samsung guy, whatever, right? So you might have other, things to ask an AI search for, maybe so that the AI search gives you a different angle than I get, right? So you get a completely different output than I do, and therefore I do think if it comes to AI search optimizations, yes, we should rethink personas. That's one thing that I wanted to say. The other thing, and this is more kind of a confirmation of what you said, we might, lose on the top of funnel. I do believe the same, and I can confirm that we should start thinking more about the deeper funnel, because if I look at the company that I'm working for, right, whereas normal keyword tracking always goes to listing pages, generic listing pages, category pages, so to speak, I do see that the referral traffic from AI search bots directly land to 70% of the traffic that comes from those machines land on the detail pages, whereas we never really took enough care about detail pages, because it was just a fraction of traffic, which might change now. So we should really look at the deeper funnel at the end of the day. And the third thing that I want to say is on the prompt tracking, I also do agree. For me, it is much more important, and that is back to the first thing that I said about personas. For me, it's much more important the sub-queries, like how does an AI search, what kind of sentiment do they have about my brand, about my company? Will I be perceived or mentioned like positively? Do I have a good quality product, a bad quality product? Will I be considered negative, etc.? So all those kind of questions, because that gives you an idea of, okay, that's the sentiment the user gets from an AI search about my brand. Do I really want to be seen as that, or do I need to change that? And that gives you a strategic input of, how's the communication that you do content-wise on your website? Should you most probably improve your product or rethink your product so that you're getting more into a higher quality area, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of rethinking of strategies that we used to when it comes to those three things, like personas, deeper funnel optimization, and prompt tracking.
Yeah, I think from the benefits of these systems, and what I've started to realize is that because these things have learned from a corpus and more, they can give you like some kind of some artificial or synthetic opinion of what it knows about this corpus of data. You can ask it, okay, what do you know about companies in some vertical? So what do you know about businesses in SEO? And the AI is going to tell you a bunch of companies that it knows about in SEO. And then you can ask the AI, why didn't you cite my business? And this is my business. And the AI will tell you, why didn't it cite your business? And then you can use that data to kind of see if it makes sense, if it's something that you want to be positioned as, and to see if this is something that you missed and it should be on your business and you want to be seen as that. And so it's like a bit of a more granular way of looking at gap analysis on terms of content, on what you are missing, what you mention, sometimes you don't mention certain things as a strategic report. For example, I don't mention keyword research on my website because this is not something that I want to do. Or this is not something that I want to be known for or want to position myself as. I don't want to be seen as content producer. I want to be seen as a technical / product SEO. So I don't mention these things like keyword research and title optimization, or some things that are very like content, analog to content. But although this might be things that make the AI mention you and understand you more as being part of the ecosystem of SEO, you need to understand that this is the corpus that the AI learned from at a certain point. And as it progresses in the learning path and it amasses more data, learns a bit more, it will start to have different kind of we'll be able to probably segment more what types of SEO exist and not putting everything in the same bucket. So I think we are a bit going against the we are running very early with the findings that the AI gives us, like in a way that, this is the definitive scenario that the AI has, and there is no way that it will evolve or refine further from here. So what I am going to do in terms of to improve my product is I'm going to work towards what the AI is telling me, what it knows, and not what I want it to be known for. I don't know if I made myself clear. So whenever you query an AI and you ask something about an AI, what the AI replies to you is going to be based what a data set that is already learned from, not something that it exists probably after that cutoff point, or that will be something that will learn from future data that you'll put on your website. So whatever, I think we are always like doing work based on looking at almost like at a delayed kind of or an outdated an outdated picture of what the AI knows about us. So I think this needs to be accounted for, so we do not like fall into the trap of the AI didn't cite me for this. So I need to put this and this more on my website or on my pages, but I didn't account for that. As it learns more and it refines itself, it would do a better job at distinguishing me from my competition if I would not chase what everyone else is chasing. Because if you and I and everyone else chases the same things, and we are then what's going to be the distinction in the end between all of the businesses, right? Like,
but let's dive into this one, because yes, AI search is increasingly summarizing information, rather than just linking to a page that a normal Google SERP does, right? And I do believe on your page you have it in your own hands how you want to be seen, right? All the content that you put in there, the words that you use, the way how you describe, you have it in your own hands to write positively about it, and you will, right? Because it's your own website, but it's different than an AI search, so to speak. So what's your take on how should companies rethink their product content and SEO strategies to remain visible and valuable when search engines are generating their own answers, like AI search engines or AI search is generating their own answers? Like, how's that, changing the way how we think, content as a product feature?
I think overall, first you need to understand what I'm going to call it, what kind of traits or and kind of entities, so to speak, or compose the graph. I'd say this orbit around the topic that you want. So there's the center of the topic that you want to be known for, and then there's a myriad of other things that are around it, right? And these orbital moons of other topics or neighbor topics can vary depending of how you position yourself. If you are more a technical person, it goes more towards a certain way. If you are more content, it goes towards some other way. But you need to have this right by yourself, and you need to be certain of it. You can use AI to kind of give you a guidance around what you might be missing that's not there and you didn't think about. But you need to be the ultimate validator of that. You should not put this in the hands of AI to dictate what you should be and what you shouldn't be. It's you as a rational being who needs to decide what you want to be known for and what you do not want to be known for. And do not fall into the trap of chasing everything. This is what I was trying to say earlier. You need to make a very good distinction between this is the path I'm going to go down to, and I'm going to validate this against my own beliefs. And if the AI gives me data that proves that I'm wrong in terms of what I believe, and I can validate the data that the AI is giving me, then I might, consider some other things that I want to add. But you should not blindly just throw into the bucket whatever AI tells you that you should add into your product or into your page or into your content, whatever. So once you have this, then it's a matter of having this North Star very well defined for you, and having your value proposition very well defined for you, and be aware that AIs, they drift and they hallucinate and they say things that are not true. So be aware of the things whenever you want to be mentioned in AI, whenever you query an AI about whatever you are after. But I think what's important is to have your North Star defined, your orbit, your center, and everything. And you can use AI to augment your powers, but do not let it override you unless it has like meaningful data. And you should also do your homework. You should also do your research around what you might be missing outside of AI. You can then see if the AI how it deals with this new information that you bring into the table that you are going to put into your product. But do not let that be the ultimate or the only point that you consider for moving or changing your product, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've spoken also about search findability, right? And building products that are inherently discoverable. So what practical steps can product teams now take early in the product lifecycle to ensure that features, data structures, content are search-friendly from the ground up, especially now for AI search? Is there anything that you would give as a tip, a concrete tip to product teams?
I think it's pretty much goes all to the advice that I've given when we were with SEO. I mean, for I think John Mueller just last week put a statement that Barry Schwartz kind of grabbed, and the biggest ranking factor is consistency. And what does this mean? This means that you plan something, how it's gonna be born, how it's going to live its life, and how it's going to die. And with any system, with any website, it should be planned. And if it's not planned, you run the risk of having to do sometimes drastic changes halfway. And when you do changes, machines do not deal very well with changes. So they will need to recrawl, reindex, reassess the relevancy, reassess all the signals before they either cite you or rank you. So if you do a methodologically correct and thoughtful planning process where you design the information architecture for your website, you design what's going to be the functionality is out, how it's going to branch out, the chances that you're going to have to make drastic changes are going to not be zero, but are going to be reduced by a significant amount. And when you do this, you are at an advantage over anyone that didn't do this and that has to do changes to readapt either to what you didn't think that your industry was going to be, what you didn't think that your value proposition is either strong or weak enough, and suddenly you have to, restructure your website or rethink the content or whatever. So think about minimizing the chances of disruption and minimizing the chances of change. If you manage to do this, and if you are more successful at this planning, the chances are that you will not have to do a lot of changes, and this will kind of award you to be more consistent, more because the machine already knows where to find you, knows your content in a certain way. Although everything is gonna branch out of your content and out of your pages in a more how can I say, logical way, and in a way that makes more sense from a usability and from a user architecture point of view. So everything is just gonna branch out like a tree would grow its branches, instead of having to cut a branch because it grew into the wall of the house and you planted it too close to the wall. So in an aspect, it's like consistency and reliability and making sure that you put some work into proper planning, proper planning in all aspects, not only in architecture, but content itself is also an architecture. If you plan a content that is like weak rather than not, you're going to have to rework it later, and you are going to have to rethink about it. But if your content has is strong in its value proposition, and it basically doesn't die in relevancy in a short amount of time, then you are much better placed over everyone else that didn't do the work. So I think overall, summarizing, is like planning and aiming to be consistent.
Absolutely love this. This goes back to the idea of, if you rebuild or you build your website, you develop things and just put it on top. And after 10 years or so, you recognize, oh, fuck, we have so much technical debt. We are our infrastructure is so old. We need to rebuild everything. And then you come into this dangerous loop of, as you just described, right? A relaunch, everything needs to be recalculated, revalidated and stuff like that, and most of the time it's not going into the direction that you want to. So rather building small innovations all the time and continuously building stuff. I think that's absolutely the right way, and unfortunately not be seen in a lot of companies doing right. Last question from me. Looking ahead, like what skills or mindset should modern SEO and product teams cultivate to succeed in a world where algorithms can understand context, intent, and entities far better than before? And how might AI itself become a tool within product-led SEO workflows? What's your take on this?
First of all, I think you need to understand data analysis not from not from a pure analysis point of view, but from what data you need to collect in order to have good insights, because a lot of people are realizing just now, and because of AI, that they should have had like log access, been collecting log access for longer, because due to the nature of how these chatbots work and the way that they do grounding and the citations and user triggered actions, the only way that you can have some kind of data that is not purely guesswork on how the systems are interacting with your website is looking at your access logs and seeing these bots present in the pages that it tries to visit. And then you can start to have an idea of what pages are being mentioned or even picked up for these processes inside the LLMs. This doesn't give you a comprehensive data, but it gives you a starting point to understand, okay, this page is consistently picked up to be cited or to be used for something. And then as hopefully we evolve, and hopefully these systems at some point, or Google will give us a bit more data to cross with what we already are able to have, then we'll be able to make more informed decisions. But I think overall is data analysis, that you know which data you should be gathering and what you need to prepare for, or what you need to explain or sell to your boss, so it gives you buy-in to have the systems properly set, so you gather the data to give better insights. I think second is like to know what you should be asking the AI to do for you, and kind of how you should be aware of its pitfalls. Like, for example, I tend to create like custom GPTs to do a lot of stuff for me, because custom GPTs allow me to define a set of a templated kind of behavior that I want it to behave as, and this will diminish the chances that it will give me something that diverges from what I want, regardless of the quality of the prompt that I put in initially. So if you build, for example, GPT to help you with certain tasks, make sure that you kind of take time to build it. Like, for example, I use GPTs to help me with Jira tickets, for example. I say I wanted to create me like a section for a problem statement. I wanted to have like validation. I wanted to have me as a section for resources. And I know that it's whatever I throw into it, it's always going to spit me out something in that templated format, right? So this is just like a dumb example. You can use it for some many other tasks that you have, depending on the outputs that you need. And this will one, facilitate you spotting any errors that the AI might do on when it kind of outputs stuff into you. It might help you, with the velocity of your work, like be more efficient at what you do. But I think overall what you need to understand is that these tools should not replace you as a thinking being. It should augment your powers as a production machine and not kind of actually replace your knowledge. You should always look at the output and kind of, be the ultimate validator of what it puts out, because a machine cannot be held accountable for the decisions that you should be making. And I think this to say that the use of a GPT or these AI systems doesn't dismiss the need for knowledge in the areas that you are working in, and probably tapping into the knowledge yourself. I can ask how would a user, I can ask the AI to create a persona and kind of act like a certain user and how it would act towards my website. But this doesn't replace me actually interviewing, being part of an interview with this kind of users and kind of having a real look at the actual behavior of these users, and then you can kind of see the difference and see where the AI kind of might fall short. So in a way, I think it's mostly like how you can integrate it to make your work more efficient, but do not lose track of what you should be validating and what you should be you should be the corrector of the AI and not the other way around. I think those are the main points of attention that I would put out. And be mindful that the AI only knows what it has been trained upon. It's not, the AI is not an intelligent being on its own. It's like, it's a statistical, probabilistical model that outputs the next likely word in the chain of thought. And this will not yield sometimes the creative output that you will need to kind of, solve a specific problem that requires a certain level of creativity. Or, we have all been I think I have been at the point where I had to dismiss, for example, a good practice in SEO, because I know that for this aspect that I was working with, we would have to work with a trade-off where, we would have to kind of go in one direction where the ideal world of SEO would say you to go in this other direction. But as a person with critical thinking, you know better than just to rely on a tool that tells you that this is the way you should go. And AI is just another tool, just is the level of assertiveness that it has in terms of trying to being confident about the answers is much more than any other tool that we've been using. So be careful with that. So that it's just to say that no tool replaces your own judgment in the end.
Yeah, and also not the experience, right? Your experience is more important than the knowledge of the AI, so to speak. So thank you very much, Pedro, for the conversation. I really enjoyed it, learned a lot. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you also listen to the other English episodes with Eli Schwartz on Product-Led SEO, Ren Fishkin, and also Aleida Solis. Please make sure to tune in next week for all the German listeners, and we see and hear soon. Thank you so much. Ciao, Pedro.
Thank you for having me.